Welcome to this conversation on leadership and connection. Today, we're talking about something that quietly impacts nearly every organization, yet often goes unaddressed, and that is silos. More importantly, we're focusing on how to break down silos at work in a way that is practical, evidence based, and immediately actionable for women in leadership. Silos are those invisible barriers between teams, departments, or even leadership levels. They don't just slow things down, they reduce trust, limit innovation, and ultimately affect outcomes. Research shows that 83% of companies report silos, and 97% say they negatively impact performance. That's not a small issue. That's a systemic leadership challenge. But here's the opportunity. Leaders who know how to bridge these gaps become more influential, more visible, and more effective. Let's walk through what this looks like in practice. First, you have to recognize where silos exist. Silos are rarely intentional. They form because organizations grow, specialize, and create separate goals. Harvard research suggests that as organizations scale, collaboration across teams becomes harder than managing within a team. So instead of assuming resistance, approach this with curiosity. Here's what you can say. Where are we seeing breakdowns in communication? What information would have helped you earlier? Where do you feel disconnected from other teams? Notice the tone. This is not about blame, it's about understanding. Once you've identified the gaps, the next step is alignment. Silos thrive when teams are rewarded individually instead of collectively. When marketing is measured on leads and product is measured on features, they are not naturally incentivized to work together. This is where shared goals come in. Research shows that when teams align around common outcomes, collaboration increases and silo mentality decreases. So instead of separate metrics, create what's called a bridge metric, a shared outcome that requires collaboration. Here's what that sounds like in real life. Our success depends on how well we work together, not just individually. Let's define one shared outcome we all own. This shifts the entire dynamic from competition to collaboration. Now let's talk about communication. Most organizations communicate vertically, within teams, but not horizontally, across teams. And that's where silos deepen. A study cited in your content highlights that communication patterns are often hierarchical, with limited cross level interaction. So, your role as a leader is to expand the conversation. Here's what you can say. Who else needs to be part of this conversation? Let's bring in perspectives from other teams before we finalize this. These are small shifts, but they change behavior. Now let's move into one of the most important and often overlooked factors, psychological safety. Research by Amy Edmondson shows that psychological safety is the number one predictor of high performing teams. When people feel safe, they share ideas, ask questions, and reach out across boundaries. Without it, they stay silent. So, as a leader, you model this. You might say, it's okay if we don't have all the answers. Let's figure this out together. I want to hear different perspectives, even if they challenge the plan. And here's something powerful. When leaders openly share mistakes, it breaks down barriers faster than any formal initiative. One strategy mentioned in your framework is the failure resume. Leaders sharing what didn't work and what they learned. That's how you normalize collaboration over perfection. Now let's talk about creating actual opportunities for collaboration, because meetings alone won't fix silos. What works are shared experiences. Research shows that employees with strong internal networks are more engaged and more likely to stay with their organization. So you create intentional connection points. You might say, let's pair teams together on this initiative. Who can collaborate with another department on this project? You can implement things like cross-functional projects, job shadowing, or even something as simple as a 15-minute random coffee between departments. These small moments build trust, and trust breaks silos. Next, we need to address incentives, because here's the truth. If collaboration isn't rewarded, it won't happen. Silos persist when people are rewarded for protecting their own outcomes. So as a leader, you shift what you recognize. You say, this success happened because of collaboration across teams. I want to recognize how you supported another department. You highlight the behavior you want repeated. Now let's talk about technology. Many organizations unintentionally reinforce silos through disconnected systems. When one department uses one platform and another uses something entirely different, information becomes fragmented. This creates what's known as digital silos. The solution is not just tools, it's transparency. Here's what you can say. Let's make sure everyone has access to this information. How can we make this data visible across teams? The goal is a shared source of truth. Now let's talk about leadership behavior. Because culture is shaped by what leaders do, not just what they say. If leaders stay within their own departments, teams will do the same. So you model collaboration. You say, I'm reaching out to other teams to get their perspective. Let's make decisions that benefit the organization as a whole. When people see you doing this, they follow. Next, we need to address something more complex: power dynamics. Silos are often reinforced by politics, competition, and resource control. Research shows that silo mentality can lead to power struggles and reduce motivation. So, your role is to bring alignment and transparency. You might say, let's focus on what's best for the organization, not just one team. How can we align priorities across departments? You're not ignoring differences, you're aligning them. Now, let's bring this into a real world example. Imagine a healthcare organization where utilization management, case management, and provider relations are all working independently. The result? Delayed decisions, conflicting priorities, frustration. But when you bring these teams together through weekly cross functional meetings, shared metrics, and open communication, everything changes. Here's what you might say in that setting. Our shared goal is better patient outcomes. How do we align around that? Let's create one unified process instead of three separate ones. That's how you move from fragmentation to alignment. Now, one of the most important things to remember is that breaking silos is not a one time initiative, it's a leadership practice. You reinforce it through consistency. You say, collaboration is part of how we work, not an extra step. Let's keep refining how we work together. Over time, this becomes culture. And when that happens, the impact is significant. Organizations that successfully break down silos see increased innovation, stronger engagement, faster decision making, and improved performance. So, as we close, here's what I want you to take with you. Learning how to break down silos at work is not about adding more processes, it's about changing how people connect. It's about shifting from control to collaboration. And for women in leadership, this is where your strengths, communication, empathy, and relationship building become your greatest advantage. Because the future of leadership is not about working in isolation, it's about building bridges. And that starts with you. Make sure to like, subscribe, and grab my free leadership workbook, 5 Steps to Communicate with Calm, Clarity, and Confidence at powerofpeacefulness.com. Until next time, take a deep breath, embrace the present moment, and keep walking your path to peace.